Hello my friends. Welcome once again to this journey. I'm going to put on a jacket, the funky jacket, to go along with my funky shirt here, because I don't want anybody to take me too seriously. Hopefully my camera endures this video. My camera's falling apart and I can't see the screen and, whatever. I've made a lot of videos about a lot of subjects, and I don't really hold back on the things that I talk about. People know that. I'm pretty open about my use of substances, but most people will notice that I don't rub it in. I'm not the kind of person who sits and talks about drugs all day as being this big, great, wonderful thing, and there are a lot of channels where people talk just about drugs, just about getting high. The truth is, I actually enjoy some of those channels. In fact, Psyched Substances this morning had a video about psychedelics and hallucinations, which came just in time for the fact that about 3 days ago I took a LSD journey. I took about 3 drops, and it was just perfect for me to get into this realm of interesting visuals. And he talked about whether or not it comes from the subconscious, and these are things that I've been talking about with people for a long time. Psychedelics themselves, beyond the hallucinatory effects, have many medicinal benefits. There are so many things that I want to talk about here. There are a variety of substances that can help us to attain a better state of mind, a more coherent state of mind, and to feel better. And so I can't bite my tongue on these things because of the dogma, the stigma, rather, that's attached to it, that drugs are bad. Okay, that's the old South Park, for those who don't know. Mr. Mackey from South Park was the counselor, and he would always say that drugs are bad. Okay, and it became this, just kind of a spokes term for the advocacy of being clean and sober, living a true life, living a happy life. Don't let drugs get in the way, and all these anti-drug commercials which are pushed upon us as youth and all the way into adulthood make us feel guilty for what we do. But let's switch modes for a minute. Not many people feel guilty about saying, oh, I went out to the bar the other night and had a drink with a few friends, got a little bit drunk, had to take a taxi home. That's considered normal, okay? And of course, I know with a lot of people, it's the opposite. That's not normal. That the people who have been through alcohol addiction have gone through AA and found that life is best lived on life's terms. I understand. I had to go to AA meetings for court-mandated treatment that I went through twice. And I learned how to fake my AA slips to get through it because it is anonymous. You can't really cross-check it. But the whole way through it, I felt like, I have the right to be whoever I want to be. I have the right to consume what I want to consume. And so what I'd like to do here is outlay some of my favorite substances. Because, I made a video last night about nootropics and how I'm going to be designing my own line. I already have the formula, and I have everything ordered. Most of the ingredients I already have, and it's not something that just popped into my mind the other day. It's something that I've been thinking about for the last couple of years and decided this is what I'm going to do. Brain hacking, if you want to call it that. And the idea is to find the most coherent method of functioning with a minimal impact on the psyche and minimal damage to the body. Hopefully, no damage to the body. Now, I'm burning Palo Santo here, and this is a wood that has a wonderful smell when it's burned. This is my example of odor therapy, or smell therapy. Smells can trigger certain arousals, they can trigger certain effects in a person's brain. Anybody who's smelled essential oils knows that they can have immediate impact on the well-being and effect of a person. And a lot of folks would argue that's placebo, and I would argue that it doesn't matter. Placebo is just as strong as anything else. So smell therapy is a wonderful thing. Now, there's also sound therapy. people know that I've used these before, but you know, the other day when we were in the middle of our journey, I brought 2 of these bowls with me, and my, well, I don't want to name names, an acquaintance, family, friend, whoever, and I each grabbed one of these bowls, and we proceeded to follow the rim and do the pattern. And one thing I found is during my psychedelic journey, the sounds seem to blend together. That it does something with sound waves, which allows your brain to somewhat meld them together into one resonating feeling. But it can create an actual feeling and be therapeutic. They have huge bowls that are very deep and phenomenal sounding. So we have smell therapy, we have sound therapy, and we have light therapy. It's well known that if a person is suffering from depression, especially winter depression, they can go into a tanning booth, and that extra light creates that vitamin D that helps them to feel better. You know, as for the science behind it, we know that it's something that works. It's very difficult to pin down a lot of the feelings and how they really affect us. Between the sound and the light and that therapy, those aren't even substances. Those are things that you are just immersed in. You're immersed in frequency, immersed in smells. And without getting too far off topic, smells actually, there's interesting new studies to show that smells may actually be treated kind of on the quantum level. I'd love to get into that in a different video, but the way that we actually perceive smells, the way that the molecules seem to fit like a vibratory rate, that our brain is picking up the vibration of these smells. And that to me is fascinating because, you know, it's just like the vibration of the bowls. Ultimately, what we're looking for out of all of this is kind of a peak performance type thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've been a cannabis smoker for 25 years, but only in recent years have I cut down immensely to where I don't really smoke very much anymore. Because I've seen how much cannabis clouds my completely functional, coherent state of mind that I enjoy, which is usually, you know, my stack, or what you might call that, is nothing more than kratom, coffee, and I vape. And in the evening, I might have, you know, smoke a couple bowls. I love cannabis, and I've been smoking it for a long time. But, you know, for example, nicotine itself is considered a nootropic. Nicotine is a phenomenal agent. I'm going to get into some details here, and I want to read some facts and whatnot. And I'm not sure where to start. This might end up being a 2-part video. But this is kind of important stuff to me, because with the future of mankind, we have no idea where we're going to go. But we do know that in order to function at our best, there are many different options to choose from with modern science and technology. You might have heard of binaural beats, and that is where different tones are played through each ear, and that eventually your hemispheres of your brain supposedly synchronize to that music. I've experimented with that. I don't know what to think of it yet. I've experimented with solfeggio tones, which are considered the sacred tones. I'm not sure what to think about that. Although studying hertz and frequencies, I have some completely different theories. But here I'm going to stick to mainly substances. Now right here I have my pipe with a bowl of cannabis in it, and some hash that a friend of mine made out of last year's harvest. That's a little ball of that on top. And then on top of that hash I have canna, which is also known as, well, I should say it's Scaletium tortuosum, also known as canna, or cowgoed. It's a plant from South Africa that was used by the Hottentot tribe, by shamans and the people, for ceremonial uses, and it's treated similar to the way that, well, the effects are similar to MDMA when it's eaten or ingested, but very mild. Kind of like an MDMA come-on. So you feel empathetic, you feel good and relaxed, and it can be stimulating at first and then sedating later. Using these plants in the right amounts is the most key aspect to it. So I'm going to take a toke real quick. I was talking to a friend earlier about alcohol who is going to quit for a year. And it's because he's been drinking for a long time, daily. And for me, alcohol is somewhat of I consider it a tool. It actually, a small dose of alcohol, if you're not a regular drinker, can allow you to think clearer. It can allow me to think clearer. To feel a little more, mostly it's a hunger issue. Like if you have a depressed appetite, you can drink a shot of alcohol and it will help you to feel hungry for dinner. I mean, it's well known, people have a drink before dinner. So, for me this works, but not for everyone. And that's the problem with the different, chemistries of our bodies. I've spent so much of this video just kind of getting into it that this is probably going to end up being a two-parter, because I have an entire page here of research on psilocybin and 2 more pages of research on psilocybin, and that doesn't even get into the next page, which is talking about a variety of other substances that I've been fascinated with. I'm going to check and see how much time is left on this camera first. Oh, good. I've got lots of time. Because the truth is, once it gets past about 20 minutes or so, 23 minutes, my camera starts to get kind of funky. But I think I can cover this and that. So what I want to say is, don't be ashamed of who you are and what you consume if it helps you. And when it comes to substances, many of them actually cloud my thoughts. That's why taking a small toke is fine, but if I get too far into that, then my words will probably get jumbled. This right here is a jar of high CBD. It's a tincture that's made from an extract of, whoops, don't touch hash. It's a tincture that I made out of glycerin and about, a quarter to a half pound of Harlequin Tsunami cannabis, which is a high CBD strain, 14% CBD and less than 1% THC. And having this is like gold to me. I take a small amount of that, I have it in a dropper bottle here, and I put it in my smoothie mix every day. And I've definitely noticed a difference over the last week, but I've also included a few other things in my regimen. And I might go into detail about the specifics of what I take, but it's not very much. I do take kratom each day, but my smoothie mix consists of like a Vega 1 blend, which is, all the basic amino acids and foods. It's like a full meal blend, but I also have my own smoothie mix that I mix with that. And it's, maybe like a half ounce total of powder, but it has moringa, cordyceps, ashwagandha, and mucuna pruriens. Which, speaking of, maybe I should just grab the camera and do this now, because I wanted to talk about the differences in quality of these herbs. And my camera's broken, so I'll do my best. So, right there, that's guarana. And over here is mucuna pruriens. Now that's a 25% l-dopa, standardized to 25%. And they look very similar. In fact, I had a customer like, did you get those mixed up? Like about a year ago when I first got them, and I stopped carrying guarana for a long time because of that. But anyhow, they're definitely different. The taste is different, but my vendor grinds his stuff himself, so generally the grinds can be similar. But here's what I wanted to say. Here's some guarana, here's some mucuna. This is ashwagandha, which has its own particular texture, and it's malty. Cordyceps sinensis, which is another fungus that I take. And this here is green tea extract. And what we have here is vitamin B6 and pure l-dopa. And the interesting thing about that is you have white powders. I have them over here in this bowl. So let's talk about white powders for a minute, because that's kind of where I wanted to go with this. The fact that when you're buying from certain vendors, when you're buying from certain overseas people or folks that you don't know whether you can trust. You don't know what you're getting. And this is the problem a lot of people are having with these particular compounds that are put in these nootropics, which is why I decided to do my own particular line of them, because I want to only include natural plants and extracts that I know can be beneficial. So maybe I should start right there with the list of things that I've chosen for this, because for my particular blend, caffeine and l-theanine are the first two. L-theanine is used, it relaxes the effects of the caffeine, takes away some of the anxiety and jitters that come with caffeine use. And while l-theanine is found in black and green tea, it's not found in coffee. And that's probably why people get the coffee jitters and why there's a different effect. I actually have another herb, guayusa, which is a very high caffeine containing plant. It's like a tea, but I don't know how much it contains of l-theanine. But 200 milligrams of l-theanine and 100 milligrams of caffeine can be a wonderful effect in itself as a nootropic. And a lot of people already consume it by drinking tea every day, millions of people. So in my blend, I'm going to use guarana. It's a high xanthine blend of guarana with l-theanine, bacopa monnieri. Now, the bacopa has what they call bacosides in it, and bacoside A being one of the main constituents. It also contains small trace amounts of nicotine and a variety of other substances, but it's useful for memory recall, and it activates choline acetyltransferase. I won't get into the details of that yet, but it enhances the opiate effects, but it reduces the high. Now, I have to do more research on this, but that's a very interesting concept. It seems that some herbs do that. They can help synergize with cannabis, yet reduce the harmful effects, of opiates, but reduce the harmful effects of them. And I find that pretty fascinating. If you're reducing the high, you're reducing the addiction, and that's key. I'm also going to add mucuna pruriens, the stuff that I carry, the 25% l-dopa, which I believe is superior to the pure l-dopa, only because you know what you're getting, but also there are other compounds within mucuna, which I believe assist. Parkinson's patients take it, and it has been very useful. It's often taken with levodopa, which is another compound, but I'll save that for another study, another talk. Ashwagandha, which activates GABA, and it helps with focus and relaxation. Ashwagandha is considered an adaptogen, and it allows the body to deal with stress. It's the kind of herb that allows you to deal with what's coming on in your life without losing your emotion. Because becoming dull is not what you want. You want to still be able to get angry, get sad, be happy, without being over or under emotional, which seems what piracetam does, which I'm going to get into that one. That's one of the main nootropics that's taken, the racetams. And all of those seem, in a lot of people, they seem to negate emotion and cause problems. So anyhow, I'm also adding cordyceps sinensis, which helps with oxygen uptake. And people have found that it helps them recover from workouts faster. And that's phenomenal, because if you can increase oxygen uptake, you can help increase oxidation in your brain of glucose, which is what gives your brain its neural activity and allows you to function at a higher level. So if you're going to oxidize more glucose, you're going to need more oxygen, right? It's common sense, but these are the connections you start to make when you look into the herbs. And the last couple are vitamin B6. It's essential to convert food into fuel for energy. So vitamin B6 is a great one, and that's why I bought this bulk vitamin B6. I might get it in a different form, but generally crystallized, B6 is it's one of the things that you're not really going to get ripped off on. And the stuff I've got is from a pretty reliable source, but you only use small amounts. And the last ingredients are lion's mane, which is a mushroom, and that has its own complete video, mushrooms themselves, and piperine and curcumin mix. Curcumin is the main ingredient that's found in turmeric, and that's the one that helps with all types of things. Besides that, it's good for arthritis and pains, but the piperine seems to increase the efficacy or absorption and bioavailability of the curcumin by up to 20 times, and that's phenomenal. So a very small amount of that added is definitely not going to hurt in a nootropic. So those are great. The only thing I'm not going to include are any racetams, because I think that those could be dangerous. And that's because I've read several reports of long-term use and the dangers of them. So I've considered cayenne and turmeric and NALT fish oil, but that's maybe something that's so easy to acquire, a person can just add that to their regimen on their own. Choline, and there's one called subultiamine. I've heard it's very addictive. It treats the brain, it affects the brain similar to cocaine in the way that it makes you want more and to dose more. And I've also talked to people who've taken tianeptine sulfate, I believe, which also can be very addictive and create a craving and have withdrawal symptoms, and all of those are dangerous. We don't want to have an overdose, and we don't want to have a withdrawal. We don't want to have an addiction, but we want to have something that can open up our minds. So there's also sleep stacks and a variety of other therapies, that can work for these same, effects. And all of them are fascinating, and I don't think that there's any reason why we humans shouldn't be able to tap into our own awareness and be able to operate at a higher level than we ordinarily would. Because, sure, evolution is phenomenal, but it doesn't mean we can't access more. I've really taken a lot more note of this over the last year as I've been typing under certain substances. It may sound silly, but to anyone who does a lot of typing, you know what I mean. You get brain fog, and you just all of a sudden just can't hit the right keys. What the hell's going on here? That can happen right after I smoke cannabis. If I smoke more than a toke, and that's why I've lost interest in cannabis, and I'm much more into these brain compounds, because they can help memory recall, they can help you function better, and they're wonderful. The idea is not to lose sight of who you are, not lose sight of your consciousness, and not lose your emotions, but at the same time enhance your cognition, enhance your memory recall, and it is possible. So once again, I have to check the camera to see how much time I have left here. It's silly as hell. It looks like I'm at 23 minutes. That means that I have to go. And that's about perfect. Because to tell you the truth, my next video is about psilocybin, so I'm going to keep that one on its own separate accord. So keep an eye out next year, in a couple months, for my blends. I still have to have labels made, and I want to make my nootropics high quality from the very best sources, materials. Try them out first, make sure that they're effective, and people who buy my products know that I do the best I can to make sure that they're high quality. But this video isn't about selling products. This video is about saying there are plenty of natural remedies and herbs that will help you to feel better, but society wants to make us feel guilty for consuming them. So it's up to you how much you're willing to accept as being the norm. If alcohol is considered the norm by society, then I'd much rather take something like kratom or smoke cannabis. I mean, the neuroprotective effects of this right here, CBD, phenomenal. In fact, I'd really like to read it before I go. If I can find it on here, I had a whole bunch of notes on here about all these herbs for this video. But I just never got around to it because there's so much to talk about. But I did put one thing on here about nicotine, and there was another thing about CBD. So if I can find it, I'll share it. CBD has anxiolytic and possibly antipsychotic properties. CBD was associated with activation in right temporal cortex during auditory processing. During visual processing, CBD increased activation relative to placebo in the right occipital lobe, with maxima in the middle and inferior occipital gyri. the lingual gyrus, and cuneus. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have read that one. CBD is the main non-psychomimetic component of the plant cannabis sativa. Exerts therapeutically promising effects on human mental health, such as inhibition of psychosis, anxiety, and depression. Repeated administration of CBD increased hippocampal progenitor proliferation and neurogenesis in wild-type mice. So what that means is it grows your brain, okay? And in a society that's taking a shitload of opiates and a whole shitload of antipsychotics and a whole shitload of antidepressants and anxiolytics, which are anti-anxiety medications, I would say that there's nothing wrong with giving some nootropics a try to see if they may help you instead. So, to each his own, and have a wonderful day. I'll talk to y'all soon.